Good afternoon, Joe Victor with Allendale Incorporated, and of course recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, and of course coming to you live from Allendale Incorporated, the headquarters in McHenry, Illinois, and that of course May 5th on a Wednesday, and we are preparing for USDA when it comes to their first official outlook for the 2010-2011 marketing year. And of course, don't forget that June planted acreage estimate that's due to come out at the end of June. Of course, one thing that we're taking a look at for the 2010-2011 marketing year, we're advising USDA that they need to come in very close, if not spot on, 13,266,000,000 bushels of corn for 2010-2011. And of course, that would be a record. That would better last year's 2009-2010 marketing year at 13,131,000,000. As you can see, of course, as production increases, demand increases, and primarily one thing we have to take a look at, and we will a little bit later in this segment, and that is looking at end stocks. When it comes to soybean production, it's not a record. It's 3.31 billion bushel versus year-ago levels of 3.359 billion. And of course, you're looking at, again, second best crop on record, and then of course figuring at least average estimates or average weather from this point forward. And of course, that is something that we take a look at, is not only from the from the March prospective plantings report to the June planted acreage report. You're looking at an average, and this is going back to 2004, at about 2% increase on corn acres. Soybean acres decline on average about 0.9%, so bigger corn acres, smaller soybean acres when that June report does come out. And then, of course, one thing we take a look at, wheat production, we put in the table for you. And, of course, this is 2010-2011 marketing year. We got the total wheat at 1.982 billion bushel versus year earlier estimates of 2.2 billion, of course, far from a record, and 2.499 billion bushel. And of course, high prices, curing high prices. We also include the hard red winter wheat. The tour, Kansas Wheat Tour, is ongoing, and of course, have estimates come out on Thursday afternoon. Of course, soft red winter wheat, white wheat, durum. Hey, don't forget, $2 a bushel more on the loan rate for durum at $6 a bushel. If I can find the seed, and I'm in part of the world, in that course that is in that central North Dakota region, I'm planting the lick out of durum wheat. And of course, $2 loan rate, $6, I can take the loan on that. And of course, if cash is below $6, I can go ahead and keep the loan rate at $6. Something that you have to keep in mind, and we are looking for 93 million bushels hard red spring, and of course white spring wheat. But you can look at the table, or you can look at the actual specifics within this table to show that wheat production down, and it is supply restricted. It is not a demand-driven market. End stocks, look at 2009, and of course this is USDA 2009, and of course 2009-2010 marketing year. Allendale is looking for a little bit of a reduction when it comes to the corn. The wheat end stocks, we're looking for a slight increase. We're not buying into the fact that we're seeing a larger wheat exports, given the time of year that we've got. And of course, by the end of May will be the end of the marketing year. And of course, slightly smaller when it comes to soybean stocks. When we look at 2010-2011, look at, the bottom line is you're looking at probably the lowest that USDA will come out with in Allendale when it comes to corn estimates next Tuesday, and that is May 11th at 7:30 in the morning when USDA releases a report. You're looking at what we believe is potentially going to be the low, given good weather for this time of year moving forward. It'll explain why in just a few minutes. And of course, when it comes to wheat, really no change. Still big wheat stocks, not only in the U.S., but in the world. And of course, we'd like to see that down to 150 million bushel, not 191 million bushel. Of course, soybean stocks increase. And of course, when it comes to the February Outlook Conference, the USDA put on, of course, the May corn yield change. This is something we look in 2004, 05, and 2000. We have a torrid planting pace, and we feel right now that when NASS, National Ag Statistics Service, comes out next Monday, we figure the Allendale estimates 84% of the crop planted. When we have such a torrid planting pace, looking for at least 2.2 bushels more, and that's what USDA, from their February Outlook Conference to the May estimate, do not be surprised when USDA comes out with a higher trend yield when it comes to corn. When looking at the world end stocks, again, primarily corn end stocks higher than we were not only for last year. Allendale is looking at 2009-2010 marketing year, but also higher when it comes to the USDA's estimates. And of course, when it comes to wheat, yes, we're going to be down, but not significantly. Again, we'd like to be at this 150 million mark. We're sitting up here at 191 million metric ton versus 196. And of course, soybean stocks, because not only within the U.S., but also primarily the big four, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, you're looking for bigger stocks that are coming out when it comes to 2010-2011 marketing year. It's that time of year, and that is primarily for wheat. And you can look at wheat, and whether it's corn or soybeans, box option strategy, we're looking at Allendale price projections December, and in the case, we're using September options, where we are selling a 550 call, we're buying the 520 put, we're selling the 470 put at different expiration levels. And of course, you can see between 550 and of course in at the $6 mark, you're looking at $250 per average. Now this is primarily wheat because it is that time of year. We are within about 6 weeks of getting a harvest started in the southern part of the U.S. And of course, we can do this. It takes us about 15 minutes to explain it to a customer. And of course, lender if need be, and get them on the line. We can do a conference call with the lender as well as the producer. And of course, it is primarily a wheat example here, but we also do corn and soybeans, something that you want to take a look at before we get to that July 4th reproductive date of corn, and that is a competing starch when it comes to wheat. But again, you can see between the $5.50 and $6 mark, $250 an acre. It's costing you 6 cents a bushel when it comes to looking at selling that call, buying the put, or selling the put along with it. And of course, any questions or comments about this presentation for Wednesday, May 5th, feel free to give us a call. Number is 800-551-4626. Visit the website, allendale-inc.com, or give us an email. Good luck. And as we say, if there's something to be aware of, and that is primarily you're potentially looking at the lowest ending stocks number that USDA will put forth will come next Tuesday on May 11th. And of course, and that is with average weather, and it is the lowest ending stocks of the year. Any questions or comments, feel free to give us a call. Number again, 800-551-4626. Thank you, and have a safe week.